In the final weeks of 2025, telescopes all over planet Earth were pointed at a single object in the night sky. And that object was doing something nobody could fully explain. It was changing color. Again, an intruder from another star system, older than our sun itself, had already shifted from a deep blood red to an eerie green to a flash of blue that made headlines around the world. And now, as a countdown ticked toward its closest approach to Earth, it transformed one final time. It began glowing gold, a shimmering dust-colored halo wrapped around a mountain-sized chunk of ice that had been falling through interstellar space for billions of years, now racing past our planet at tens of thousands of miles per hour, while an army of scientists, spacecraft, and backyard astronomers watched every second of it. Its name is 3I Atlas. It is only the third visitor from another star system ever detected in human history. And here is what makes this story worth the next few minutes of your life. The gold glow was not even the strange part. Because in the months after that golden countdown ended, as the world's attention moved on, the world's most powerful space telescope took one last deep look at this thing, and what it found broke a record held by every comet, every asteroid, every object we have ever measured in our entire solar system. A chemical signature so extreme that a Harvard astrophysicist went on national television asking whether we should consider something living inside that ice. This is the complete story of the interstellar visitor that turned gold, the countdown the whole world watched, the anomalies that fueled a global debate, and the final discoveries it left behind as it exits our solar system forever. And I do mean forever, because this object is never coming back. Stay with me to the end, because the last chapter of this story is the strangest one. I am your name, and this is your channel. Subscribe now if you want more stories like this, because we are just getting started. Let's go back to where it all began. July 1st, 2025. A survey telescope in Rio Hurtado, Chile, part of the NASA-funded Atlas network, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, flags a faint moving dot against the stars. At first, it's just another entry in the nightly haul of space rocks. But within hours, as astronomers around the world calculate its path, the numbers start coming back wrong. Beautifully, historically wrong. Every object that belongs to our solar system, every planet, every asteroid, every comet, travels on a closed loop around the sun. An ellipse. The math always closes. This object's path did not close. It was a hyperbola, an open curve, the unmistakable signature of something that fell in from outside, swung past our star exactly once, and would leave again for eternity. And it wasn't just barely interstellar. Its orbital eccentricity measured around 6, by far the most extreme ever recorded, blowing past the two previous interstellar visitors, Oumuamua in 2017 and Borisov in 2019. When it was spotted, it was already moving at roughly 137,000 miles per hour. Let me put that speed in perspective, because numbers like that slide right past you. At 137,000 miles per hour, you would travel from New York to Los Angeles in a little over a minute. You would cover the distance from the Earth to the Moon in under 2 hours, a trip that took the Apollo astronauts 3 days. A bullet fired from a rifle is moving about 50 times slower than this object was. And here's the kicker. It wasn't using an engine. It wasn't slingshotting off planets. That was simply its cruising speed after falling through interstellar space so fast that our sun's gravity, the same force that holds 8 planets in permanent captivity, could grab it, bend its path, and still fail completely to keep it. Nothing bound to our sun moves like that. This thing had been falling between the stars for so long, possibly billions of years, that some analyses suggested it might be older than our solar system itself. A frozen leftover from a star that lived and possibly died long before Earth existed. And its path through the galaxy hinted at exactly that. Studies of its motion suggested it may hail from the Milky Way's thick disk, an older, more ancient population of stars than our sun's neighborhood, with some estimates placing its age at 7 billion years or more. If that holds, then the object that visited us predates the Earth by billions of years. It was already ancient, already wandering, when our entire solar system was nothing but a collapsing cloud of gas. Every rock you have ever touched is younger than this visitor. Astronomers dug through old data and found it hiding in archived images going back weeks, even in pictures snapped by NASA's TESS planet-hunting satellite in May, before anyone knew what they were looking at. It was named 3I Atlas, the third interstellar object. And to understand why astronomers lost their minds over this one, you need to know how the first 2 visits went. In 2017, Oumuamua tumbled through our solar system, and it was a nightmare to study. Small, dark, with no visible tail, spotted only after it had already passed us, visible for mere weeks. It behaved so oddly, accelerating without an obvious comet tail, shaped like nothing we'd seen, that scientists are still arguing about what it actually was to this day. We never got a good look. In 2019, Borisov arrived, and it was almost the opposite. A well-behaved, ordinary-looking comet that happened to come from another star. Interesting precisely because it was so normal. But it was faint and distant, and again, our view was limited. 2 visitors, 2 frustratingly incomplete files. So when 3i Atlas showed up in July 2025, bigger and brighter than both, detected early, on a trajectory that would carry it past Mars, around the Sun, and to a December rendezvous with Earth's neighborhood, astronomers understood immediately this was the one. The first interstellar visitor humanity would get to study properly, from arrival to departure, with the most powerful instruments ever built. And unlike the first 2, which were faint, small, and gone almost before we could study them, this one was big, bright, active, and heading deeper into our solar system, giving humanity something it had never had before. Months of warning and a front row seat. What followed was one of the greatest observation campaigns in the history of astronomy, and the object rewarded it by putting on a show nobody scripted. When 3i Atlas first arrived, it appeared unusually red, dark and rusty, the color of a surface caked in ancient organic compounds, cooked and hardened by eons of radiation in interstellar space. One leading interpretation is that this object had been thermally processed around its home star long ago, orbiting it again and again before something, perhaps a gravitational encounter, hurled it out into the dark. Then our sun's heat began to sink in and the visitor woke up. As it plunged inward through the fall of 2025, dormant ices buried under that ancient crust started boiling off into space. Its activity erupted. The color shifted from red toward a vivid green, the classic fingerprint of diatomic carbon gas fluorescing in sunlight, and at times observers reported flashes trending toward blue, which some researchers linked to intense evaporation as the comet neared the sun. On October 3rd, it swept remarkably close to Mars, close enough that a fleet of spacecraft orbiting the red planet, including Europe's ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter, turned their cameras away from Mars and photographed an interstellar object passing by. Stop and appreciate how historic that moment was. Machines built by humans, orbiting another planet, collectively pivoted to photograph a visitor from another star system as it flew past. That had never happened before in the entire history of our species. For a few hours, Mars, a planet we have not yet set foot on, became humanity's observation deck for something from even farther away. Even NASA's Psyche spacecraft, cruising through deep space on its own mission, grabbed observations. Then came the moment of maximum danger. On October 29th, 2025, 3i Atlas reached perihelion, its closest point to the Sun, about 126 million miles out, and for weeks around that passage it was hidden in the sun's glare, unobservable from Earth. Comets die at perihelion all the time. They crack, crumble, and dissolve as solar heat tears them apart. Skywatchers still remember Comet Ison in 2013, hyped for months as the potential comet of the century, which flew into its close solar passage and simply never came out, disintegrated live on camera in front of a waiting world. And 3i Atlas faced that gauntlet with a disadvantage no local comet has. It is not built from our solar system's materials. Nobody could say for certain how alien ice, frozen around another star under unknown conditions, and aged for billions of years in interstellar cold, would react to the full blast of our sun. Some researchers openly wondered whether the object would shatter into fragments, and whether we were about to watch the first interstellar visitor in history die in our own front yard. The whole astronomy community held its breath, waiting to see what, if anything, would come out the other side. It came out the other side, intact. And when telescopes reacquired it in November, NASA celebrated by releasing a trove of images from its entire fleet, and the Gemini North telescope captured it, still wearing that ghostly green tinge. In early December, Europe's XMM Newton Space Observatory watched it in X-rays, glowing as its escaping gas slammed into the solar wind. The visitor had survived our star. And now it was coming toward us. Let me be clear about what toward us meant, because this part got wildly distorted online at the time. There was never any danger, none. The closest this object would ever get to Earth was about 170 million miles, nearly twice the distance between the Earth and the Sun. In fact, the International Planetary Defense Community used 3i Atlas as a practice target, a live drill for the Global Warning Network, precisely because it was a perfect no-risk rehearsal. But scientifically and emotionally, that December approach was everything. It was the moment of best visibility, the sharpest images, the strongest signal, humanity's one chance in this lifetime to see this particular messenger from another star at its closest. And that is exactly when it changed color one last time. In mid-December 2025, as the countdown to closest approach entered its final days, observers noted the comet's final eruptive phase winding down, the green glow of excited gas fading, and the object settling into a warm, dust-dominated golden hue as it crossed toward the constellation Leo. After months of chaos, red to green to blue, the visitor went gold for its grand finale, like a curtain call. And that golden color actually tells a story if you know how to read it. A comet's color is a message about what's pouring off its surface at that moment. When gas dominates, especially that reactive diatomic carbon, the coma fluoresces green, lit from within like a neon sign. But when the violent gas eruptions subside and dust takes over, the comet stops making its own colored light and starts simply reflecting the sun, and sunlight scattered off a cloud of fine dust grains takes on that warm, yellowish, golden tone, the same physics that paints our sunsets. So the gold was, in a sense, the visitor exhaling. The frantic phase of its solar encounter was ending, the deep eruptions quieting, the object wrapping itself in a veil of its own dust as it coasted past our planet. Months of fury, and then, right at closest approach, calm, golden composure. You almost couldn't write it better, and the world showed up for it. On December 19th, 2025, 3I Atlas made its closest approach to Earth. Skywatchers with small telescopes found it in the pre-dawn sky near Regulus, one of the brightest stars in Leo. The Virtual Telescope Project streamed it live to the world that night. For one night, an object born around another sun, older than every rock on Earth, glowing gold, hung in our sky within reach of amateur equipment. Think about how absurd and beautiful that is. Across 4.5 billion years of this planet's history, that alignment happened exactly once, and we were alive for it, with cameras rolling. But now we get to the part of this story the countdown headlines never covered, the part that unfolded after the crowds moved on. Because all through this saga, something about 3I Atlas refused to behave. As astronomers tracked its path with extreme precision, they found it wasn't moving exactly the way gravity alone demanded. It was experiencing non-gravitational acceleration, a subtle extra push. Now, for comets, there is a well-understood natural explanation: jets. As ice boils off the surface, it acts like a weak, natural rocket engine, nudging the nucleus. But the anomaly was enough for Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, famous for his provocative takes on Oumuamua, to publicly float a far wilder possibility that the acceleration could, in principle, be the signature of an internal engine. The internet did what the internet does. Speculation exploded to the point where NASA's acting administrator publicly responded to a question about the object from Kim Kardashian, of all people, stating flatly that observations showed a natural interstellar comet, no aliens, and no threat to Earth. But here's what I respect. Science didn't just dismiss the question, it tested it. In June 2026, the SETI Institute announced it had used the Allen Telescope Array in Northern California to scan 3I Atlas across a wide range of radio frequencies, genuinely listening for any technological signal. The result? Silence. Nothing but the natural hiss of a comet doing comet things. Every line of evidence, its chemistry, its dust, its outgassing, its radio quiet, pointed the same direction. This is a natural object. And honestly, that makes what comes next even more extraordinary because nature, it turns out, built something out there that our solar system apparently never could. After the flyby, the James Webb Space Telescope and Hubble kept working. Hubble's post-perihelion observations in late 2025 and early 2026 managed to separate the faint glow of the solid nucleus from its brilliant coma, and the refined analysis pointed to a nucleus roughly 2.5 kilometers across, give or take, substantially more massive than the previous interstellar comet Borisov, a genuine mountain of alien ice. In December, Webb had already made a robust detection of methane in its coma, a hyper-volatile ice that only survives in extreme cold. And then, on June 22, 2026, the hammer dropped. A study published in the journal Nature, led by Martin Cordner at NASA Goddard using Webb's NIR-SPEC instrument, reported that 3I Atlas carries a methane-to-water ratio roughly 11 times higher than any object ever measured in our solar system. Let me say that again. We have measured the chemistry of comets and icy bodies for decades, hundreds of them, and nothing, not one object born around our sun, comes anywhere close to this composition. 11 times the record. This comet is built from a recipe our solar system does not use. Frozen proof that planetary systems around other stars can form from profoundly different chemistry. And the implications of that ripple outward into some of the biggest questions we have. The ingredients. A planetary system starts with shape everything that follows. What its planets are made of, what their atmospheres become, and ultimately what chemistry is available for life. For decades, we've had exactly one example to study, our own, and we quietly assumed the rest of the galaxy probably followed a similar cookbook. 3I Atlas just told us, with hard data, that assumption is wrong. Somewhere out there is a star system that freezes methane into its comets at 11 times the concentration ours ever managed. And if that one recipe can be so different, so can countless others. The researchers attribute it to natural thermal outgassing from an object that formed in extreme cold, perhaps in the outer dark of its home system, preserved untouched across its billion-year exile. 2 days after the study, Avi Loeb appeared on national television and, referencing the extreme methane, Asked on air whether it might be indicative of microbes inside this iceberg, the consensus answer from NASA and the wider community is no. Chemistry explains it without biology. But the honest, thrilling truth underneath that exchange is this. We were only able to have that argument because, for the first time ever, humanity got a real chemical fingerprint from the deep interior of another star system. And the fingerprint didn't match anything we know. There was even one final gift. On January 22nd, 2026, Earth passed almost perfectly between the Sun and 3I Atlas, a near-opposition alignment to within 7/10 of a degree, a geometry so rare that researchers noted it might not repeat for decades, giving scientists a one-time chance to probe how its alien dust reflects light dead-on, data that will be studied for years. And now? Now it's leaving. As I record this in July 2026, 3I Atlas is out beyond the orbit of Jupiter's distance from us, drifting through the constellation Gemini, fading month by month as it climbs away from the Sun on its open hyperbolic road. There is no return date, because there is no return. The same math that told us it came from the stars guarantees it goes back to them. And think about what it carries out with it. Somewhere on that nucleus, frozen into the surface layers, are the subtle scars of its passage through our system, the crust reworked by our sun's heat, the fresh faces exposed by those December eruptions. Millions of years from now, if some other civilization around some other star ever catches this same wanderer passing through, they'll be reading a surface that our sun helped write. We didn't just observe this visitor, we left a mark on it. Within a few years, even our largest telescopes will lose it. And it will spend the next several billion years falling through the dark between stars, carrying its record-breaking ice, and now, forever, a little bit of our attention, the photons from a billion Earth cameras that bounced off its golden coma in December 2025. But here's the part that should genuinely excite you. This is not the end of the story, it's the beginning of an era. 3 interstellar visitors in less than a decade, each one stranger than the last, tells us the galaxy is absolutely teeming with these wanderers, and we simply couldn't see them before. The brand new Vera Rubin Observatory, now scanning the entire southern sky every few nights, is expected to catch potentially dozens more in the coming years. And the European Space Agency is preparing a mission called Comet Interceptor, designed to wait in space, parked and ready, so that when the right target appears, humanity can do the thing we couldn't do this time, fly out and meet one. 3I Atlas arrived, when all we could do was watch. The next messenger might get a welcoming party. So here's what I want you to take from all of this. In 18 months, a single chunk of alien ice went from an anonymous dot in a Chilean telescope to a golden spectacle in our December sky, survived our sun, embarrassed our record books, triggered a planetary defense drill, a SETI search, and a national television debate, and then quietly left forever, having taught us that other star systems build things we've never imagined. The universe mailed us a sample, postage paid, from a star we'll never visit. And the whole delivery, start to finish, happened while you were living your life. If this story blew your mind even half as much as it blew mine, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Because when Rubin catches the next interstellar visitor, and it will, I'll be covering it here the moment it breaks. Drop a comment and tell me which twist got you. The gold transformation, the 11 times methane record, or the fact that we'll never see this object again. And share this with someone who thinks nothing interesting happens in the night sky. Because for one golden night last December, the whole galaxy came to visit.